Welcome to this lesson, which is called Optimizing Your Underworld. I'm super excited about this, and you'll see why in just a moment. So essentially, for the last 6 to 12 months, I've been obsessing over one question. And it's been a question that's forced me to do tremendous introspection and research to develop the framework that I'm about to share with you. And how I came to this question was basically after having thousands of clients in my Ayurveda business and my coaching programs, I noticed that the same material, right, the same program was given to everyone. And you guys might see this in your programs too. Yet some people would have profound life changes in their health and their sense of self and relieve lifelong psychophysiological issues in my Ayurveda programs. And other people would just kind of stall and struggle to make the most basic changes in their diet or lifestyle or health or whatever it may be. And in my coaching programs, I would see some people make 30,000, 80,000, 100,000, 200,000 in a month and help dozens of people, hundreds of people, thousands of people with their work and with their mission. And some people would take months to struggle to just pick an offer or pick a niche or get a single client. And for me, it was just, really something I've had to sit with, because I realized like the same information is there for both of those categories of people. Yet some were getting massive results and some were hardly making steps towards what they said that they wanted. So my question was, why? Why do some people take advantage and make massive gains, and other people hardly make any steps towards what they say that they want? And what I've come to realize is that people want to change their circumstances without changing themselves. They forget that around 60 to 70% of the work is internal deep work, and the other 30% of work is learning tactics, strategies, skill sets, etc. Right? So, even yourself, you might be confused why we're having this lesson on optimizing your underworld and you join a business program. But why we're talking about this is because people do not have business problems. They have personal problems that reflect in their business. Okay, I'll read it again. People do not have business problems. They have personal problems that reflect in their business. And it's so easy, especially when you're just getting started in your entrepreneurial journey, or I think pretty much along the way forever, because you can always compare yourself to people a few steps ahead. It's very easy to look at people, further ahead than yourself and just say, hey, they got lucky, or they're born with it, or they're handed success, and just think that they didn't have to face massive pain and go through this process I'm about to teach you of optimizing their underworld. Okay, it's so easy to think that, and I thought that for many, many years. And so my question to you is, do you think you can be one of the people that can get massive results? Okay, the answer is you, as you are, cannot get massive results. There's no chance. And how can I be so sure? Well, it is already so. You are not at the massive results as of watching this that you hoped you would be at. Okay? And that's okay. You have to decide to kill the old you. Okay? Decide to kill the old you. Okay? And the word decide comes from Latin decidere. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly of how it would be pronounced back then, but it means essentially to cut off. Okay? That's all decide means. How do we cut off all the parts of you that are not actually in alignment with who you need to be in order to make these massive results happen in your life? Okay, any of the parts that are no longer suited to be part of your identity and part of your lifestyle. And so why we're talking about all this stuff, and we're going to go much deeper, is because any good program needs 1, high-level training, 2, mentorship from experts, 3, a community of amazing peers, and 4, this one key ingredient, which is a paradigm shift. Okay? And a paradigm, as you may have know already, is a mental model. It's a mental model or framework you've been operating by, a set of assumptions, judgments, associations, beliefs that are accepted over a long period of time. We all have them. And we need to shift your paradigm to become the one who has already earned 6, 7, or 8 figures and helped thousands of people. So a few examples of when my paradigm was shifted, because just to give you some context, I was, born and raised in a rough situation. My father immigrated from Northern Africa when he was 18, came to America, worked as a dishwasher, probably earning $4 or $5 an hour, whatever minimum wage was in the, I guess, 80s. And worked 2-3 jobs, met my mom. She was making minimum wage as a school teacher, and actually below minimum wage because she had to spend her money on the children's school supplies and even clothes sometimes, because she was working in really low income schools and because teachers are the least valued thing in society, strangely enough. And so I was raised in this, and my parents were divorced. They fought a lot. There was a lot of intensity in my upbringing. So with all this intensity and went through many different traumas, my quote unquote story, I'm just letting you know that I had to go through tremendous amount of self-doubt, self-anxiety, overcoming addictions, basically just tremendous, self-image things, fear, social anxiety, and self-doubt that ruled me. And I had to, overcome this through many different paradigm shifts. So one example of a financial paradigm shift that I had was when I hired my second coach that I had, which his name is David Nagel. You can see it here. And during one of the Zoom calls with the group, he basically just started taking out $100 bills, and then he would light one on fire and burn it. And then he took out another $100 bill, and then he just burned it. And of course, I had done some mindset work around money, but for me, it was just wild to see somebody doing that. And of course, there are people judging, this is so ignorant, you could be donating this money, there's people in need, and here you are, burning money. And what was really profound for me around this was the fact that, the piece of paper actually has no value to it. This is a dead guy on a piece of paper that's a promissory note from the government that's hey, I promise that we will uphold on good faith that this has a value, right? If you actually look into a promissory note of what a legal tender is, the US dollar is, it's just a promise that the government backs up in good faith that it has some sort of value. And really what David Nagel was teaching in that moment was, I have all of the skills needed in my brain to understand the concept of value in a marketplace, to understand how to market myself, to understand how to generate sales. And I can generate 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, million, 10 million, when I desire to, because I have the skills down and the character traits and the beliefs necessary to be the person who just earns more. And if I want to donate to a charity, I can make $100,000 more and donate $100,000 to a charity. So this piece of paper means nothing. It has no value. It's the skills, the beliefs, the character traits that actually generate money. Whereas conversely, you could look at somebody who works extremely hard. They don't have a concept of how wealth generation works, and they save up a little bit of money to give to charity, $100, $200, and they give it to charity. That person can do $200 worth of good. Whereas David Nagel, he was showing I can generate, $50,000 today if I wanted to. And of course, he had made many, many millions of dollars, and donate $50,000 today. So which one has more ignorance behind it? And anyways, it was definitely something that was shocking to me. And another concept that he shared was along the same lines. Everyone has access to the same amount of money. Okay? Everyone has access to the same amount of money. Why? Because as we just covered, money is simply an idea where there's an agreed upon value to the idea, and that currency is exchanged for the idea. Okay? So there's an idea, there's an agreed upon value that both parties have in relationship to the idea. One person gives the concept or the product or the service, and the other person gives currency, okay, in the form of, US dollars or whatever. And so there is no lack of ideas that can be transferred and traded for currency, right? And, actually there's more and more money being printed every single day in all countries, pretty much. And so everything that we see around us was something that did not exist in the physical realm and then existed in someone's heart and someone's mind. And they saw okay, there's a vision of the first iPhone. Before that, an iPhone didn't exist, but there was a vision of people having iPhones and this computer that we get to hold in our hands. There, Bill Gates had a vision of everyone having a personal computer at a time when computers took up massive amounts of space and they were extremely heavy and extremely clunky and extremely expensive. And his vision was everyone is going to have one of these in their house, which is just the most insane idea ever, at that time. But he had a vision and then understood the value that it would bring and then brought it to life through a lot of pain and, iteration. And there are no lack of ideas that anyone can bring to the marketplace if we understand the concept of value and desires and making people's lives better, reducing people's pains, increasing people's likelihood that they can achieve a certain aspiration or joy or pleasure in their life, wealth, money, health, relationships, etc. And so anybody can play the game, right? That was another huge one for me of anyone can play the game because anyone in the planet can come up with an idea that the market reciprocates with in the form of currency, if you understand the concept of value. So that was a game changer. Another game changer for me was when I saw one of my friends, this was before I hired my first coach, and they gave a testimonial for this other coach, and they basically said, I made my yearly income my monthly income. And I literally just thought this person must be telling them how to sell drugs or join a cartel or do something sort of illegal or unethical. That was the immediate thing my brain went to. And that's where my belief was at. I had never heard of someone 12xing their income in the span of 2 months. Yet my friend was leaving this testimonial. And so I checked out this coach. And honestly, I was already prejudging this coach, hoping that they would be fake, that they would be a fraud, that they would be exactly the image that I thought of them so that I could just discount the success that my friend had and I could stay safe in my own beliefs around money, around you have to work extremely hard, and around all the beliefs that I had been raised with. Because if this were to be true and it was actually ethical, whatever my friend did with this coach, it would absolutely shatter my paradigm. And then I would have to be kind of just left facing wow, I've been living in this very unhelpful paradigm around money and around success. And, obviously that would have to mean I have to be humble and I have to be open to having all my beliefs be shattered. And that's really what these paradigm shifts are is being humble enough to see what's possible. Okay? And that was mind-blowing for me too. So I spoke to this coach and they actually ended up being very genuine, very loving. And I could see they painted the pathway forward of how I would get my business to the next level. And I was making $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month at this time. And then they said, yeah, the price is $27,000. And of course my brain exploded because I didn't know anyone could even charge $27,000. I think at that point, the most I had ever spent on hiring somebody was $100. This was so much more than that. And it was more than my entire life savings. And I looked at my wife and she just said, yeah, do it. I believe in you. And of course that was so helpful to have someone behind me that believed in me more than I necessarily believed in me. And I bought it and I blasted through, 5 weeks. I made $22,000 or $25,000 or something in 5 weeks. And it was before the program even started, before I got access to any course or any coaching. I made pretty much that entire $27,000 back before I got access to anything. Why? Because I had a paradigm shift around what was possible. I went all in on me, and I finally decided to, the whole decadere thing that I told you in the last slide, I cut off the old me that was just in victimhood and blaming everybody else for why I couldn't. And I had to go all in now that I had spent more than my entire life savings. Whether or not the coach was going to teach me how to get there, I was not committing myself to the coach. I was committing myself to the result that I wanted in my life, whether or not the coach was going to get me there. And that was so powerful for me. And one of the things that this coach told me, and I'll move on to the next slide, is how would the you who has already done it, right? Who has already made 20K in a month or 50K or 100K or 200K in a month, whatever your big vision goal is, whatever your mind-blowing goal is, helped 1,000 people heal. How would the you who has already done it act? How would they spend their money? How would they speak? How would they use their time? How generous would they be? What would they worry about or not worry about? What is different about them and who you are now? Right? What's the difference between your dream aspirational, like visionary self and who you are now? What's the same about that visionary self and you, right? There's probably many similarities. Beautiful, loving, service-oriented, there's many similarities. And just as any product on the planet is conceived of in the mind before it's brought into reality, the same is true with our identities. We start to step into what does it feel like to be the person who's already done it? What would it feel like to walk as that person, to speak as that person, to use my time, to spend as that person? And it really does something to the consciousness. And I can speak from experience and everybody I've helped as well. Any paradigm based on blame has to go. So it is not your past, not your race, not your gender, not your age, not your lack of skills, not your lack of time, not your lack of charisma, not your family, not your tech skills, not your inflammation in your body, not the government. None of those things are why you haven't achieved the result you want. It is not your past. It is not your race. It is not your gender. It is not your age. It is not any of those things of why you haven't gotten the result. Nobody wrote your story except for you. And until you accept that, there's no paradigm shift available. There's nobody and no thing to blame for where you are right now. Right? Except really yourself. And I don't mean that in a negative, trash yourself sort of way, but just you are 100% responsible for where you are in your life, in your health, in your career, everywhere. And we can ignore this reality, but we can never ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. Okay, let me say that again. We can ignore this reality that you're 100% responsible for your life and the results, but we can never ignore the consequences of ignoring reality, right? Because you're experiencing them every day. And the more you negate total self-responsibility, the more the consequences become so unignorable. They're just everywhere around you. Okay, they're so tangible. It just becomes so tangible. And the more you believe your story, the more power it holds over you, which means the less control you have. And the less control you have, the less you can create different results in life. Okay, a victim always has a story of why they act the way they act and why they get the results they get. The birth and harnessing of the victim story is the most dangerous thing standing in the way of progress. Okay, and I can speak this from experience because literally before I hired this coach, for many years, say for a good 20 plus years of my life, I was in a victim story. I saw how everyone was against me. I saw how other people got opportunities and I didn't, how the institution I was a part of wasn't promoting me properly or giving me, seeing me in my potential, how all the trauma from my past was to blame, how my dad didn't believe in me, how so many things, right? How some people had money and I had $200 in my bank account and had to, just work myself out of that hole. And it was just constant. we're raised in a Muslim family, immigrant family, like constant of how something outside of me was responsible for where I was. And it was so dangerous. Like it just oppressed me. I oppressed me more than anything else in my life oppressed me. Now, obviously, this is very controversial to say, and many people will push back against it, right? Like, you have to be compassionate to someone's story and validate each other's story. Like, I hear you, and I see you, and I feel you. And there's definitely a space for that. And I think all of us, if we want to do big things, we have to step outside of our story, okay? We have to step out of our story because it's that very story that's been creating the results that we have right now. And so the thing is, your story can be true in actuality or in experience, right? It can be true, right? Something really intense happened. That's true. It's not that it didn't happen. It just may not be a helpful story to retell again and again and again, right? After telling yourself the story of how your dad did this and that, just ask yourself, okay, and the work still needs to be worked at the end of the day. The mission still needs to be, dedicated to at the end of the day. And there are stories that we tell that are helpful to achieving a goal in our mission, and there are stories that do not support us in achieving anything great whatsoever. Just like mantras of negativity. Okay? And the thing is, as long as there is someone out there who has had it worse than you, who is now further ahead than you, then all the reasons why you can't get what you want mean nothing. Okay, this has been a very powerful quote. I heard it from Alex Hermosi. So he said, as long as there's someone out there who has had it worse than you, right, was more abused or more repressed or more of a minority card or whatever than you, who is now further ahead than you, all the reasons and excuses of why you can't be the person you want and live the life you want mean nothing. Which I was just like, damn. Like, sure, there is an indulgence in the victim story. There's an indulgence in being small. There is an indulgence in being the minority. For sure. And we just have to ask ourselves, is the story that I tell about life actually helpful towards the person I want to become and the mission that I want to carry out? That's the question we have to sit with. The concept of Dharma means to free ourselves from the myths that we have locked ourselves into. And it's essentially about taking back authorship of our text. So many of you have heard the concept of Dharma, and you've maybe heard it translated as duty or our work. But in a literal translation, Dharma means the essence, the essential nature of a thing. So the Dharma of water is wetness. The Dharma of fire is heat. And you, in your truest nature, you have your own essence that is unchangeable, right? It is completely linked with who you are. And so we want to free ourselves from anything that is not that. All these extra stories that we've really bought into and locked ourselves into. And we want to take back authorship of the text of the story of life that we're creating. That's part of the Dharmic path. Anyone who has been successful in this program has had to have the old them die, because the old them definitely was not getting the results that they wanted. A new person had to be birthed. And my most successful clients quit working in codependent relationships, cut ties with unproductive friends, quit weed, quit porn, quit blaming, quit drinking, stopped hoarding every dollar that they earned, and essentially embodied a more successful, devoted, generous, humble, and bold version of themselves. And out of all the people who, win in life, whatever that means, they didn't say, because I am, insert X, identity or religion or excuse, whatever, because of this, I couldn't win. They said, in spite of the challenges, I won anyway. Okay? Nobody saved them. Nobody saved the people who are winning in life. And everyone's going to face duality. Everyone's going to face challenges. Your challenges are not unique. And they're all built into the human experience, okay? And who you are right now is not who you will be when you achieve the things that you want. So let's go into a little bit of a graphic representation of some of these concepts and how to think about paradigms. So I'm going to explain these graphs in a second, but a really powerful quote that I heard is, you do not become your highest dream, you become the lowest standard you can accept in your life. Okay? You do not become your highest dream and aspiration. You become the lowest standard that you can accept in your life. And so hopefully this is readable here, but this top graph is just an oscillating wave here. And at the top, there's 6K a month, and at the bottom, there's 2K a month. And so I'm just going to give you this like as an example, that, for myself, when I was just getting started in my business, like 2K a month was kind of like my panic number. Like if I like went down to that number or like dipped below it, like I'd be like, oh my God, like I really have to do something. And then 6K was like feeling comfortable, like, wow, I'm really doing it. And it would feel awesome. And what I would notice is like I would go up to 6K and feel really awesome in the beginning. And then I would basically just dip back right down to 2K. And I would just oscillate like back and forth between high highs and low lows. Okay. And like I would freak out once I hit that panic number, and I would just do all the things that I knew I needed to do to hit 6K. And then when I would do 6K, I kind of coast, and then I go back down. And in the same sense, like with my health, so on the bottom here it says lazy, unmotivated, eating poorly in the second graph, and at the top it says motivated, eating clean, and exercising. And so, I think many of us can have this experience, but I've definitely had periods of existence where I felt lazy, unmotivated. I was eating things I know that weren't really going to uplift me, and I felt horrible. And I had all these bad habits, and then I would just feel shame and guilt and like fed up with myself. And then I'd be like, all right, let me kick ass and, get my stuff together. And then I would go to the gym and meditate really, regularly and eat really clean. And I'd feel really awesome. I'd be motivated, on top of the world, exercising, eating clean, just like living a really high level life. And then I would go back down. And, that was just the cycle again and again. And I would kind of just feel great. And then I would let my bedtime extend, and I would like stay up late and allow myself to eat like lower quality foods, and I would just oscillate. And then again, this last one here, sorry, I should have made these a little bit bigger, is basically it says, as your house is as dirty as you would allow it on the bottom, and your house is spotless at the top of the wave. All right. So at the bottom of the wave, it's like, okay, your house has gotten to like this critical point of like having things left out, having things not swept, having the counter not wiped. And it's like as dirty as you would allow it, whatever that means for you. And then you're like, man, I really got to clean. Then you go in a cleaning frenzy, and the house is spotless, everything's in order, organized, etc. And then, slowly things pile back up, and it's as dirty as you allow. And so, the concept here is that, there's these highs and lows, and they tend to all be correlated. So, when I'm making the 6K a month, I'm also motivated, exercising, eating clean, meditating, like living a higher integrity life. My house is spotless. Okay. All these things are like going together. And then when I'm making 2K a month, like I'm also feeling like lazy, unmotivated, maybe not eating the best foods, and my house is not as clean, or my living space is not as clean as it should be. And then, all of these cycles are oscillating together. And this dotted line is kind of like the sum average of the high peak and the low valley. All right. And that's kind of just like, if you were to see me at any given day, that's like kind of like the average of where I would be at. Okay. And that's kind of like what we become in life, is the middle point between our highest aspirations and, the panic zone, okay, or in that valley, right? And so let's see how this works, particularly like in a financial paradigm shift. So how do we break out of the patterns that we're used to in a financial paradigm? Well, in my case, this was kind of like my scarcity number was 2K, and I'd start to panic and freak out. And if I dip below that, I'd be like really worried, and I'd like kick ass and go back up. And then like my need number to like have a good life and feel like I'm on track was 6K. Now, what I needed to do is create this dream outcome. Create something beyond the paradigm that you're used to. And it's not just like going to be like a little bit more like, oh, like 7K or like 8K. That's not really a dream. That's just like, you know, quote unquote, like realistic based on what you've been able to achieve in the past. Is like the natural extension of like a linear next step. But I'm talking about a paradigm shift. So we want to pick something that is, you know, in a different paradigm. And so for me, you know, when I hired my first coach, my number was actually 14K. I just put 25K here for an example, all right? But my dream number when I hired my first coach, I was like going to be mind blown if I ever made 14K. And so you have to determine what is that paradigm shift number for you, all right? That's the first thing. And essentially what I had to do was become the person who needed the 25K a month or needed the 14K a month, right? And that is the paradigm shift, right? And identity is I break out of this old paradigm of like, I was only the person who needed, you know, 6K a month to feel like I was thriving. And I didn't have the overhead like reality or like need to save, or I didn't have like a bank account set up for like the retreat center I wanted to open. I didn't have like a new car I wanted to pay off. I didn't have like the coach that I wanted to pay off. And then when I invested, now immediately there became a need to pay that amount, or else I was going to have negative $3,000 if I didn't do anything, right? The coach that I hired cost 27K and I only had 24K. So I needed to generate this number and needed to become the person who had a direct need for that larger paradigm of wealth to come through. And what's so interesting, you know, before I move on, is that need, as far as finances, is an arbitrary number set by your parents' beliefs around money. So whatever your parents generally like quote unquote needed to feel comfortable and safe, those are generally what we have as our financial set points, right? But what's so interesting is that quote unquote what's reasonable or what's necessary is so different from family to family and culture to culture. So in the US, you know, maybe someone could earn $4,000 a month and like that is their need number and like they feel good. In India, that $4,000 a month would be incredible. In South America, it might be incredible, you know, and it seems maybe quote unquote excessive in some cultures. Whereas if you were in another family and you only made $4,000 a month, it would be way unacceptable. Maybe the mortgage is way higher, you know, the cost of raising children is way higher, et cetera, et cetera. And because of where you are in life and what family you are born into, there's a set number that's quote unquote your need number. All right. And so that's why the identity shift and paradigm shift is so important for who you are, to become the person who needs whatever amount you set as your dream number. Okay? Or else like, why would it come in? Right? If there was no need for it, why does it come in? All right. So this is basically how we reject the old paradigm, is we set our new scarcity number as our old need number. So you noticed, you know, in the last slide, that my need number was 6K and my scarcity number was 2K. Now I want to set my old need number as my new scarcity number and my dream number as my new need number. All right? And then you can just basically repeat the process. And this is what I did. Like I created a need after I hired my coach and paid all that money and I paid it off. Then like I had to continue making that need. So like I then wanted to pay my car off in full. I then wanted to pay my entire year of rent in our apartment with my wife and I wanted to pay that in full. And then I wanted to then I upgraded to this need, this new dream of 50K a month. Why? Because I had a dream for a retreat center and retreat centers cost a lot of money. And so then I actually opened a bank account that needed me to put, 10, 15, 20 grand a month or whatever into it just specifically to set aside for that retreat center project. So I continuously worked up my identity as far as what I needed as a bare minimum and set aside the money to those things accordingly, right? Whereas if you don't have a predefined need and this kind of visionary budget that you have to hit, then why does it need to come in? It doesn't need to come in. And generally people are wired to only make what they need. And based on your current identity, what you need is what you're making. So you have to upgrade your identity to increase the need to then increase what we earn on a moment-to-moment basis. Because it's a rare type of person that will earn and continue to earn more and more and more without increasing their identity and therefore increasing their need. Most people just will never do that. And so again, you create the new scarcity line, on this third graph here. Create the new scarcity line, reject the old paradigm, and create the new need line. And that's essentially how I upgraded as far as identity-wise and paradigm-wise with my income. Okay, I became the person who needed $50,000 a month. And, at this point in my business, if we, dip below 200 grand a month, even 200 grand a month, I'm this is unacceptable, And it's not that I don't feel grateful. I feel extremely grateful. I just know what we're capable of, and I know what is possible. Okay? And as you grow, you'll see that too. Right? And you've probably already seen that many times in your life around what's possible. Okay? Now, let me move on. So, talking about the psychomechanics of change. Now, this graph on the left here is something you may have seen in a chiropractor's office. That's where I first saw it, was in a chiropractor's office. And basically down here on the bottom left, it's suffering, right? Like deep suffering. And all these little circles in the graph, these white circles, are treatments, chiropractic adjustments. And, whether or not you believe in chiropractic or not, is kind of beside the point. But as you get more treatments, you're getting these very slow, not really noticeable results. And then after a bunch of them, then you're making a little bit of progress weeks in, and then a little bit more, treatments, and then you're getting some slightly noticeable improvement, and then some more, now you're feeling a little bit better, and then some more treatments, and then your symptoms are starting to be alleviated, okay? And in this graph, it shows that this point right here, where it starts to turn into the yellow instead of the red, it is a critical point of decision. And what a lot of people do, and you as a health practitioner, as a coach, or whatever, may have experienced this, is now symptoms are gone. And now the reactionary thing that caused a person to get help is now, gone. That stimuli of pain is now gone. So now we can manipulate our behavior to stop doing the positive action. And that's, again, what I was showing you in the past example here with the cleaning room and the exercising and eating healthy and the income and all that. And if you decide to stop the positive action, then basically you descend back down into relapse and you go back into pain. And then you have to start all over again. And then there's decision time, and then you start all over again, start all over again, start all over again. Whereas if you stick with it, then you retain the progress. You improve the biomechanics. You improve spinal function. You improve ligament strengthening. And then you are doing and being your best, and you're just, feeling incredible. And you're maintaining that state of wellness through a lot less frequent treatments, and it's contributing to your longevity as a whole. And it's not this reactionary measure. It's rather like a proactive surplus and, maintenance. All right. And on the right side, you can see the emotional cycle of change is very similar. If we were to extend it, it would look the exact same as this chiropractor graph here. So stage 1, it says uninformed optimism. So in the entrepreneurial world, uninformed optimism looks like you just need to build a funnel and IG ads, and then you get all excited and you're like, oh my God, this is what my coaching business has been missing, right? Like I'm giving the example of my program, and you're like, wow, this is exactly what I'm gonna just slam it out of the park with. Once I have this, I'm gonna blast off, and it's gonna be so easy, and that's why I haven't been successful. And then you get into the program and you start to learn, okay, It's actually going to be hard work. And you're going to have to learn a lot. And you actually have to be better. You're actually going to have to like face your underworld and all these things and learn sales and learn DMs and learn all these things. And it goes into stage 2, which is informed pessimism, right? Now you're informed on the level of work that's going to take to actualize the result using that new method. And it becomes a more pessimistic mood, like, oh my gosh. And usually that goes down and down and down until stage 3, which is the valley of despair, which is like, man, it's a really confronting place to be in. It feels hard. It feels really hard, okay? And this is the critical moment of truth, because at this point, you can quit and, see another ad on Instagram, and now it's talking about how webinars are the way, or how drop shipping or e-commerce, or how a low ticket funnel, or how Instagram shout outs, or, growing a membership community. And you're like, yeah, like growing a membership community sounds great. I don't have to like do sales calls and like, I don't have to do sales calls and like run all these ads and blah, blah, blah. I can just like get thousands of people to sign up for my membership and make $1 trillion that way. And then you get in and now you're back in uninformed optimism. And then you start to learn, oh my God, I actually have to like post a lot. I actually have to like create like incredible content for people to like word of mouth, get other people to pay for my membership. Oh my gosh, like actually like 30% of people will drop out of this membership each month. So I have to have like so many more people joining each month. And then you start to learn all that it takes in that opportunity. And you go into stage 2, informed pessimism. And then you go back to stage 3, valley of despair, and you have a choice again. And a lot of people, they just go stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and then they quit and repeat. And they're just like, yeah, ads don't work for me. Yeah, memberships don't work for me. Yeah, webinars don't work for me. And they think the next thing is going to do it. And guess what? All of them work. Low ticket memberships, you can make them successful. Webinars work. You can make millions of dollars. The funnels and Instagram ads, they all work, and they can also make you millions of dollars, right? There are people doing all of those things successfully, right? And the critical moment here in the valley of despair is to understand that this will likely happen to you in any big change in your life. And you can either get sucked into the illusion of something new and shiny and seemingly easier being the solution and to go back to square one, or you can push through, actually learn, actually become better, actually gain skill sets, and then you get this stage 4, informed optimism, and you feel like, oh, you actually are confident because you understand the systems of success. You understand how to create repeatable results. And then you gain mastery in the stage 5, and you feel successful and fulfilled, and you've attained your goal, and now you are set in this way of being. Right? In our case, business. And now you're set financially for life. But most people are just unwilling to go through this hero's journey and confront this valley of despair. And, a kind of blunt judgment that I have is, well, they don't deserve to get to stage 5. And not like in a weird way. I think everyone deserves, innate sense of happiness and belonging and whatever. But to steward large amounts of like wealth and leadership of others, and like to be able to lead others in their own emotional cycle of change, if you're unwilling to go through stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in yourself, how do you expect others to trust you to take them through that journey if you yourself have just resisted it this whole time? Right? Like, would the you who's making $20,000 a month or $50,000 or 100 or whatever that dream number is for you, like, who would they have to be, character-wise, to be able to steward that, right? To be a fit for that level of income and impact. So I'm going to give you some methods on how to face your demons, how to face this valley of despair, how to face all the little, like, gnawing things that hold you back and that are whispers in your ears about how you can't do it, and all those annoying things that destroy most people. Okay? So we've covered how paradigm shifts works. Now I'm going to tell you like how to mitigate the kind of ugly underbelly of change. All right? And that's really going to be helpful. So as we have seen in all these graphs, there are constructive and destructive forces that each of us have. And they seem to be in competition with each other. All right? And in fact, the Vedic philosophy shares that these modes of consciousness, higher and lower modes of consciousness, are indeed always fighting for attention. Right? So you get on track, like I was showing you in all those graphs, and you feel on top of the world, and then the lower you starts fighting for attention. Okay? And it's natural. And then when your lower you is like kind of had enough, then your higher you starts to win and starts to fight for attention. And we just oscillate between duality. And the indigenous Americans say that there is a good dog and a bad dog in each of us. And the one that wins is the one that we feed. But something very interesting and nuanced is when the bad dog, right, and I have this in quotes for a reason. I don't actually think it's a bad dog, just an undeveloped part of ourselves, remains undetected, he can become stronger while hidden in the shadows. Okay, he or she. And your lower desires and negative tendencies are going to hold so much more of a destructive grip on your life to the extent that they are not directly seen. They will always come out sideways. Okay? And I'll give an example. So my own self-judgment was coming out through judging others. I was seeing so many successful people around me when I was living in the ashram, and they were getting to speak on stages and lead big retreats and big trainings. And I thought, man, why don't I get these opportunities? Why am I not earning that? Why am I not influencing people in that way? And it would come out in passive aggression, comparison, envy, jealousy, judgment. And it would never come out really ferociously, but just it would definitely affect me internally. And really, I was seeing my own unmet potential standing outside of me. And instead of confronting that head on and just becoming better and realizing that people ahead of me were different people who had bettered themselves in ways that I had not yet, consciously or unconsciously, instead of actually realizing that, I just had it come out sideways. It was squeezing out of my sides. And you've probably experienced this in your life and relationships, someone who's passive aggressive or angry or, does strange things because they haven't directly told you how they feel or cleared things in their heart. And the same thing happens in our relationship to ourselves and, in our relationship to facing our own demons. If we don't face it head on and actually look at it, it's going to come out in so many different ways and just keep us trapped. So another thing when facing your demons is the need to be seen as purely good while completely negating the destructive, unpolished, non-socially acceptable, undeveloped parts of yourself is very dangerous. Okay? It is also duplicitous. And duplicity will always lead to suffering. It is always easier to be seen as good than to be truly developed deeply in our character. Okay? It is always easier to curate an Instagram feed and a website and make it look really cute and amazing and inspiring than to curate our hearts as truly nourishing, inspiring places. And we think we are more polished than we are because we have not looked in the mirror hard enough. And again, when I say all this stuff, I'm speaking to myself, and definitely speaking to my past self here. So, I know it's you cannot call yourself honest if you have not had the chance to greatly benefit from lying and know that you would have gotten away with it and still decided not to lie. You cannot call yourself faithful until you have had the chance to cheat on your spouse with someone really attractive and have nobody find out and still chose not to. Okay. Why I mention this is because there are lower tendencies within each of us. There are demons within each of us. And with wealth, followers, and success comes great power and also a great responsibility. And I find many people fear success on a conscious or unconscious level, which they couch in imposter syndrome and so many other labels. And what I find is that imposter syndrome is probably not applicable for any of you guys, because if you're in this program, it means you're a, authentic person whose life is dedicated towards service for the most part. And you're not really trying to be someone that you're not. You're not trying to fake it as somebody else. But what I find is a lot of people are not used to being bigger than they have allowed themselves to be. Like they're scared of being bigger than they are, or I should say bigger than they're used to. Because there is a part of you that is much bigger than you are now, or else you wouldn't have bought this program. And we couch it in imposter syndrome, okay? So yeah, just like have imposter syndrome. But it really is like, okay, like when you think about you making 20K in a month or 100K in a month or 200 or 500K in a month or $1 million in a month, like at what point does that identity become stretched and start to feel like, ooh, like that means something about me that I might not like? Or at what number does it become uncomfortable? Right? And I find many times it's because people have not faced their own underside, their own demons, right? Because when you understand your underworld, your middle world, your upper world, you can develop complete trust in yourself and become fearless, become bold enough to be the person that does your mission and build more intimacy in every part of your life while unlocking your hidden potential, right? And so, you know, your upper world is your spiritual self, your deepest, unwavering, blissful identity and personhood. Your middle world is your humanness, right? Your purpose, your contribution, your work, your relating with others, and your place on the earth. And your underworld is your animal desire, your unconscious desire, your fears, your repressed memories, and the aspects of yourself that are not fully acknowledged or understood. It is also the more primal, instinctual aspects of human nature that are often kept in check by societal norms. And so how we can face this underworld and just get real with it is we just stare it straight in the eyes and realize that it has much less power than we think it does. And, you know, it's really weird that I'm giving this example, but Eminem, part of what made him really successful in rap battles, I don't know if you've ever watched the movie 8 Mile, but what made him really successful was that he knew all the like kind of trash talk about himself way more than the person going against him knew the trash talk about him. And so when he rap battled people, he would just trash talk himself in the rap battle by like leading with his faults, by like exposing his underworld, okay? Exposing the things that others may judge about him, and he just would expose it himself and lead with it. And then the other person would kind of just be left with, you know, dumbfounded, because there's no way that they could weaponize his faults better than he could weaponize his own faults, because he stared his demons straight in the eyes and looked at them and understood them and accepted them and brought them into the light where it could then be dealt with on a conscious level and ultimately transcended and integrated. And I think that's so powerful. You know, for instance, like sometimes people comment like really negative stuff on my ads, and at this point it doesn't really affect me at all. But in the beginning, like sometimes it would affect me, and people would say like, oh, you know, it's so not spiritual to charge people money for this sort of stuff and whatever. And, you know, like I think as long as I was like in the beginning stages of my business, you know, with Ayurveda or whatever it was, and people would judge me like that, and I wanted to have like, you know, because I lived as a monk, I wanted to have this like air of like, you know, I'm not doing it for the money, like I just purely want to help people, and like I have zero motive to, you know, profit off of people's, you know, poor health or whatever it is, that I thought potentially people were judging me for. I hadn't faced the part of me that had this unconscious fear of being judged for liking to make money. And I think once I accepted like, hey, I really like entrepreneurialism. Hey, I really like making money. And also accepted that, you know, the part of me that loves to heal people and see them thrive and see them transform, that's also real. And that those two things are not in conflict with each other, right? I love making money and I love helping people. And then as long as I have led with that, that sort of judgment no longer affects me, because I have looked at what I thought was, you know, unacceptable part of myself and desires and accepted that desire within myself. I'm giving a basic example here. And then it no longer has power over me, and certainly others cannot weaponize it, because I'm just like, yeah, I love making money and I love helping people. Okay, so it can no longer affect me, and my demon can no longer drag me down into the depths. So that's one example of how to do it. I'm gonna give you some others. This one's called uncovering the spy. So second exercise here. Sun Tzu, author of The Art of War, shares, all warfare is based on deception. Hence, when we are able to attack, we must seem unable. When using our forces, we must appear inactive. When we are near, we must make the enemy believe we are far away. When far away, we must make him believe that we are near. Hold out baits to entice the enemy, feign disorder and crush him. If he is secure at all points, be prepared for him. If he is in superior strength, evade him. If your opponent is temperamental, seek to irritate him. Pretend to be weak, that he may grow arrogant. If he is taking his ease, give him no rest. If his forces are united, separate them. Attack him where he is unprepared, and appear where you are not expected. All right, Sun Tzu was a big fan of the use of espionage also, which is why I titled this Uncovering the Spy, as one of the most destructive forces, right, using spies. And even Napoleon said, one spy in the right place is worth 20,000 men in the field. So you might be thinking, Yamuna, why are you talking about warfare? Aren't we supposed to be learning about ads, sales, funnels? Yes, we're going to get to that. And every strategy we teach absolutely works. And I find that the only variable we usually have to solve for is human unreliability. And humans are unreliable because there is an unseen war happening within them, countering each move, calculating each advance, and planning an attack to keep them stuck. And it is why many have high-level aspirations, but few people actually become high-level people and attain them. And the greatest, weapon in this war is that there's a spy in your mind, and that spy is you or your subconscious, okay? That spy is your lower self trying to drag you down, all right, and keep you where you are. One of the best exercises you'll be able to begin immediately using today is what I call uncovering the spy. The spy can only do damage to the extent it remains undetected. If the spy is discovered, it can be fed false information or leveraged to win wars. So many times this happened actually in wars where they knew there was a spy in the enemy camp, or they knew there was a spy in their base, and they fed the spy false information. And then because the spy went back to the enemy base and fed the false information, they were able to have a lot of leverage and basically just win massive wars that they were, originally disadvantaged to. And how we're going to do this exercise is for any commitment you approach in your day that you did not get to, become aware and ask yourself, what are the thoughts that popped into my head that allowed me to feel justified or okay in breaking my own word? This is a beautiful exercise given by a coach of mine a while ago. And it's been super transformative, right? Like if it's a sales call, or I know I need to do DMs, or I know I need to, launch my ads or whatever it is, there's that thing you need to do that will take your business to the next level if you just do it. And many times you don't do it. So why? It's an unconscious process of a thought that popped into your head. Oh, you should clean your car. Oh, you should, your phone's going to die. Why don't you charge that and get back to this later? Whatever the thought is, it allows you to justify not taking action, and allows you to justify breaking your word. And the only way to stop this process from happening is to write out all of those thoughts. Become aware, slow down the process. When you see resistance, when you see your brain hijacking you, which usually you don't even really notice, it just takes you on its journey and leaves you in the dust. You want to slow down that process, become aware of those thoughts and write them down. So whenever you have it happen again, right? Because you've identified that spy, when it speaks again, you're going to be able to recognize that the spy is the one speaking and hijacking. You can hear it loud and clear, and you can use that to your advantage to gain leverage over your subconscious and still do the action that you're supposed to do right now. And of course, Carl Jung, he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This is a very simple exercise to make the unconscious conscious. All those sneaky little spy thoughts that come in and hijack your processes when you're trying to do important work, which happens to so many people. This is how we make the unconscious conscious. Just write it on a sticky note and have those excuses or thoughts or rationalizations stuck right in front of you where you can see it. So when those thoughts come up again, you say, I see you. I found you out. And now you can actually work with it and move past it. All right, the second to last exercise I'm going to share is called Understanding the Mirror of Reality. So again, along the same lines that we've been talking about for a while here, understanding that what you are experiencing in reality and your business and your life and your health, etc., and your relationships is a mirror of what's happening inside of you. Okay? And specifically in relation to business, I'll talk about a few different examples here, that you need to become the client you want to have in life. Okay, so how you move through this program specifically, how you move through this program specifically, and how you move through any agreement that you hire somebody else for, and how you relate with money, and so many other things is going to determine what you experience on your sales calls and with your clients. And so think about all of the major objections and things that you'll face with potential clients. Okay, so obviously, let me think about it, like indecisiveness, I don't have the money, I need permission from my partner, uncertainty or doubt, asking for discounts, withholding generosity, that's just a general life principle, and judgment of others. So these are just some very common ones that are very relevant to business. So let me think about it. You want to think about all the things that you desire in your existence that you just have put off because you haven't gained clarity in yourself. Okay? And one of the really important things to understand is that this whole let me think about it thing with potential clients, when you're on a sales call with them and just in your own life, that the principle is clarity is not a function of time. Okay? Because there are people who take forever and are still unclear. All right? Clarity is not a function of time. Now, of course, time in some circumstances can be helpful because of how people process information and whatever. But the point here is you want to become a decisive person when you know yourself and also simultaneously know that if you make any decisions that are quote unquote the wrong decisions and you look back on life and you see mistakes you made in the past and how much you've grown from mistakes you've made in the past, then you gain this unwavering trust in yourself that no matter what you decide, whether it's quote unquote the right decision or wrong decision, you can make things right if you wrong somebody, or you can learn from your mistakes if you make mistakes. And if you choose the right thing, you can really utilize it to your full advantage. And no matter what, in reality, you are a growing person that trusts yourself enough to be decisive and to move forward on things. And, when I hired my first coach, it was $27,000. It was more than my entire life savings. I just kind of looked at my wife and she was like, yeah. And then I just kind of sat with myself and I was like, okay. I was like, let's do this. I just decided. And what was so powerful was that I wasn't saying yes to the coach. I was saying yes to going all in on me and going all in on my mission and and going all in on choosing the outcome I wanted, not just choosing the program. There's a huge difference of just deciding that I was going to get the outcome I wanted, regardless of if the coach I was hiring explicitly got me there or not. And, just kind of saying yes to the coach and kind of hoping that the coach did the work for me. And so when I signed up for that coach, I was saying yes to the outcome, not yes to the coach. And what that allowed me to do is make back basically the entirety of the tuition before I got any access to education or any access to coaching. And that was a really, really cool experience to just see what I was capable of and decide to be the one who's already done it. And so eliminating as much of this in your life as possible, of like the things that you know you want, the things that you know you need to do, yet you use this, oh, I like need to really like think about it. Okay, well, like think about it for 2 seconds. Like, what are the variables that you need to get clear about in that decision? And those things don't take forever to get clear about. It just takes actually looking at it, actually, being a decisive person around it, and trusting yourself that you can make it through and learn either way. Don't have the money. So again, you want to eliminate this as much as possible from your own life, and think about all the things in life that you say you can't do because of money, and you want to eliminate that. Okay? Like a massage, getting a weekly massage, like what, it costs $80 at a Thai massage place, or $100 or whatever. If you have $100, you do have the money. And so you need to reframe how you speak around money at the very least. And instead of saying you don't have the money, just say, I am unwilling to spend on, $100 on a massage because I value the idea of security that it gives me to keep that $100. And then you can just be real about your desires instead of playing this whole don't have the money thing. And I think that's so powerful to help other people through as well, as just kind of realigning them with what they actually want. And a lot of the times it's not about not having it, it's just about willingness. And so also another really important thing along the lines of eliminating this, thing that you have in your life around money, is to not be resentful or negative in paying anything. So whether that's like a utility bill, or like even a speeding ticket, or internet, or some annoying fees from a company, like just being happy every time you spend. Okay? And creating that positive loop with money is really, really important, because if you have this like resentful thing around spending, even if it's like on like stupid things, like, then that's the energetic you have around money, and that's the energetic precedent you set for your clients coming in. Okay? It's like a burden to spend money. It's annoying to have to spend money. It's a sacrifice to have to spend money, right? Partner permission. So think about like all the things, like if you have a wife, husband, girlfriend, boyfriend, fiance, whatever it is, that you are not doing, because you, quote unquote, need partner permission. I think this is a very interesting one to look at and just destroy. Now, obviously, like there's things that you want to honor in a relationship no matter what, and principles and guiding values and respect for one another. And when it comes to like your own self-actualization and self-potentiality, personally, I don't believe a partner has permission to withhold or like discourage in any way my own self-actualization or growth in my mission or whatever, as long as I'm obviously like not neglecting them or whatever. I'm doing my duty, and I want support. And I think it would be unreasonable for my partner to basically say like, yeah, I don't believe in you buying this course. I don't believe in you buying this course, or I don't believe in you growing your business to the next level, or whatever. And so eliminating that, like actually understanding how to have loving, beautiful communication and boundaries with, and realign with your relationships that you have in life around what you want and where you're going, and really get on the same page. And if you can't get on the exact same page, then at least create some healthy boundaries around what someone can and cannot control in your own existence. I think this is really important, and maybe I didn't express it as eloquently as I could, but I think you get the concept. Like, what are all the things that you're not doing that would be great for you and great for your mission that maybe you're not doing because of a partner? All right? Uncertainty and doubt. What are all the things that, maybe because of potential failure or uncertainty or doubt or fear of whatever, are you not pursuing? are you not doing? Are you not being? Like, maybe there's conversations you're not having in your life with a friend that you really need to tell something to, or a relationship you need to end, or, a new endeavor that you have been putting off for a long time, or an employee that you have not fired for a long time that you know you should have, or whatever it is, right? Think of the things that you know would be great for you that you are using uncertainty and doubt as a way to avoid, all right? Discounts. Don't ask for discounts, all right? Don't ask for discounts. Pay full price, especially for business owners, small business owners, and especially service providers. Don't ever ask for a discount. Just pay in full. Pay in full. Okay? Yeah. The only exception I could possibly think of is when you go to a country where haggling is inbuilt into the culture, and if you're white and you're not from their country, they're gonna charge you 10 times the amount. That happens in India when I go to India, and people try to get 5 times the amount what I know the set price is for something. And so that's not a discount, right? I want to pay what the actual rate is. But as far as a service, a massage or a training or education, whatever, I'm never going to ask for a discount, especially to a small business owner. So don't ask for discounts. Just pay in full for things, okay? And be happy to pay in full and be happy to do that. And along with that is generosity, right? When it comes to being the person who's already done it, what would it be like to give a $20 tip for a cup of coffee? What would it be like to give a $50 tip for a cup of coffee? Or do something unreasonably generous and just have that energetic with money, have that energetic with your ability to give. You are a source from which abundance comes, and you're a source from which generosity. And it doesn't have to be money, right? But obviously we're working with money here. And this is a powerful exercise that I've done many times, even when I was making much less money and, could have had this fear of well, that's not responsible. Well, if you want to be the person that's really calculating everything that you give and withholding, that is what you're going to get. It is the mirror of reality. And I learned that. And as soon as I just stopped calculating what I was giving and nickel and diming and asking for gas money for people, it's in different stages of my life where I was calculating in my relationships what I had given and what the other person had given, and kind of withholding my generosity based on what others hadn't given yet, or based on my own beliefs around finances or whatever, then that was what I was experiencing in life. And I had to test those boundaries in myself by starting with something that felt bold for me. So even if that's just a $10 tip for a $6 coffee, maybe that's bold for you, okay? And it's not gonna put you into debt, but it's gonna start to stretch that muscle of generosity, and just buying amazing things for your parents, doing things that are unreasonable, buying flowers, cooking an incredible meal, giving someone a massage, giving back, especially to those who love you. And especially also, I think it's powerful to practice this on complete strangers and not wait to receive their reaction, right? Because I think part of why, philanthropy is, exciting for people is because they get to receive the feeling of feeling good about it, because they receive, the thank you and oh my God, this is so generous, blah, blah, blah. So if you're going to do something wildly generous, leave a big tip, you want to leave the tip and not even look at their reaction and leave, because then you're just generous, independent of the reaction that they give you. Okay. And I know it sounds really weird, but I do think it is an important principle here, and just try it out, right? Just do it as a science experiment. Do something good, do something unreasonably good that no one will find out it is you. Okay? And this is so interesting. Actually, now I'm reflecting on my life. When I was living as a monk in the ashram, and I'm just sharing this in service of this point, I was just seeing a lot of stuff about my own ego that I wasn't happy with. And one of those things was like my need to be seen as good and, so giving and like so compassionate, whatever. And I was just kind of like sick of like seeing that need in myself to be validated in that way. It was just kind of like bothering me. And so, I would really make it my mission to like do all these secretive services for others that they wouldn't know it's me, so that I wouldn't get all that like validation and adoration and, oh my gosh, playing into my ego of how great I am. And I would just get to do the good thing without receiving all the hype onto my ego. And to me, that was so healing for some reason. So I don't know why I felt inspired to share that, but I do think that was like a really important exercise for me at the time, was just like do a bunch of good without people seeing that I'm doing a bunch of good. And it was so healing for me. And then judgment. So realizing like, when you see somebody's ads or you see someone's post or you hear somebody speaking in a conversation, like realize the judgments that go through your head about people, right? And it's like natural to judge. And like we want to curb it as much as possible, because to the extent we judge, then to the extent our boldness will be curbed due to fear of potential judgment. Like, what if you gained 1 million followers? Like, okay, you probably get a lot more judgment. Like, okay, then I'll just play small, right? So many people play small in fear of being judged, like subtly, or making a lot more money. Like, what if your family found out, or like, what if your guru or your teachers found out you made $1 million plus this month, right? Just to give like a wild example, right? So eliminating the judgments of others, because when you are perpetuating those really strong judgments of others, then simultaneously you are trying to avoid the judgment of others in yourself. And you will manipulate your own actions and manipulate your own ability to be bold and make incredible decisions to grow your mission if you are doing something subtly to protect yourself from judgment. And some of you might be like, yeah, that's not me, like I don't really care about other people's judgment. Everyone does. And to the extent you are judging others and having some sort of, character analysis of others, then you are manipulating yourself into that dichotomy. All right. So anyways, this is all to say, like, become the client that you want to have. Like, don't show up halfway. Don't show up halfway. Don't blame. Don't do any of these things here. Don't just commit to the program. Commit to the outcome. Become the client you want to have in life. All right. It's super important. All right. Now, last exercise. This one's called reversing your karmic load. All right, so on the other side of the equation, right, we just talked about understanding the mirror of reality, where, we want to prevent ourselves from doing things that cause more pain in the future by understanding the mirror of reality. Now, on the other side, understanding that like the friction that we're experiencing now is from our actions in the past. Okay? What you are receiving reflects what you have done and the way you have thought and spoken and been. And you cannot cheat cause and effect even by 1%. You are getting a direct result of your actions in the past. And if you cheat, you must be cheated. If you lied, you must be lied to. If you stole, you must be stolen from. So I'm going to give you an example. I'll give you 2 examples actually, and then we'll just bring this home. So one example of like me trying to cheat cause and effect is quite a few years back, one of my mentors was leading a training online that was a training I had been waiting to take for years. It was like a high-level meditation course called Pranavidya, and it was something I was really, really looking forward to. And at the time, I had just moved to a new state, and my income was entirely based on in-person clients at that time, doing Ayurveda, consultations, body work, etc., all in person. And so I had lost my entire income stream like 2 weeks before this course. And I moved to a new space, and Leela was living with me, whatever, my wife. And I knew this teacher very well, and they knew me. We were part of the same community. And so they gave me like, they're just like, yeah, join, I'll give you a discount, and, you can come in and, learn. And so I did. And what I did that was out of integrity and me trying to innocently enough cheat cause and effect was I had my wife attend the training, just like sitting by my side out of the scope of the camera while I was on Zoom in this group training. There's like 80 people in this training. So I thought, okay, what's one more? It's on Zoom. It doesn't cost them anything to have like my wife just sitting next to me and kind of like absorbing this knowledge. And plus, like, it's like a hard time in the world right now. And plus, like, I just lost all my income. So I had all these like rationalizations that made it seem okay for me to do it in my own brain. And like, I'm like, man, he has 80 people in here times however much tuition. Like, that's a lot of money. Like, it'll be fine. And I took the training. We both took training. We had an incredible experience. And then what happened was like months later, it started to pop into my brain like, hey, like, that doesn't sit right with me. It feels like a little duplicitous. It feels like a little bit out of alignment with who I want to be as a person and as an entrepreneur. And like, if someone did that to me in my course, like, how would I feel? And I wouldn't feel good. And so I just, it started to pop into my brain, and I would just press it down, be like, it's not a big deal. He doesn't even know. And I thought I was getting like away with it, but then it would just keep coming up in my brain. And like, I actually did experience it in my business where like I had somebody come in, they just like ripped off all my content and then just like tried to sell it as their own. And of course that's not what I did with this person, but, with my teacher, but I was like experiencing the karmic reversal of my actions. And I was just like, it would just keep coming up in my brain like, hey, remember, you took that course, you didn't pay full price, plus you didn't even pay for your wife to be there. Doesn't it feel like disingenuous to you? And I would just like ignore the thoughts. And, then like I found this like whole strategy of reversing your karmic load, which, it's not really reversing your karma, but it's a strategy in which we can clear all these fluctuations that are happening in the mind, all these like disturbances that come up in the mind due to, potentially out of integrity things or unresolved things from the past. And so I just called up this teacher and was like, hey, this is like really random. This was many years ago. But I've been feeling bad about this. I don't feel like it's a good representation of who I want to be. And, I would like to pay you in full for my ticket and pay you in full for my wife's ticket because she came and I didn't tell you she came. And my teacher was just like, oh, like, don't worry about it. I'm so happy she was there. I didn't know that she came. The more the merrier, blah, 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 which of course made me feel like, damn, like, made me feel like a little worse. But like, be ready to like, do good on your past things. So that was one example of trying to cheat cause and effect. The other one very quickly was, when I was 19, living with one of my good friends as a roommate in college. We had an apartment. We were splitting the rent half and half, and his parents were paying, for most of his half of the rent. And we kind of had like a falling out of our relationship. And my friend, my friend and one of his friends, like kind of like took some things from me that were costly, and they didn't want to like give them back or pay me for them. And so what I did is I was just like calculated the cost of those things and I deducted it from what I was going to pay towards the rent. So I pretty much put the responsibility onto my friend's parents. I was like, okay, well, he took, $300 worth of things from me or whatever. Now, like, you guys are responsible to pay that back. And like, if your son wants to take radical responsibility, like he'll pay you guys that back because that's what he took from me. And that was like my whole line of logic that made sense to me at the time. I was like, man, I got wronged. This is my way of kind of like evening it out a little bit. That makes logical sense. And then of course, like that kind of weighed on me because I was like, well, his parents didn't do anything to me. So why would I put this on them? But I also didn't want to just like eat the loss of having those things taken from me. So I was like rationalizing this whole thing, but it kept coming up. And so I just called up the parents, when I was doing this exercise, of reversing the karmic load. And I just like offered, I was like, hey, this is the amount, can I pay you this amount? Like, I don't feel like it was fair to you guys. And so this is the whole exercise of reversing your karmic load. You're going to go down your list of contacts and find all the people you had micro and macro aggressions with, any stickiness at all, any misgiving, any duplicitousness. So you realize, like, I gave an example from when I was 19, like so long ago, but I wanted to just like think about all the contacts in my list that something I did was not 100% a reflection of who I want to be. Okay. And try to make it right. Like, be ready to pay. Like, even if it was just like you worked at this employer and you would take cookies for free that you shouldn't have, right? Like, go into that place and like buy the cookies. Or you like took $1 from your grandma when you're like a kid, like go give that back, go pay it back. Just remove the fluctuations that are subtly happening under the surface that cause you to not be peaceful. All right. There's a famous quote in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. It says, Yoga's chittavritti narodaha. It means that yoga or union means to basically calm the fluctuations of the mind. And all these like subtle misgivings or little like out of integrity things are causing subtle ripples in the pond of the mind. But we want a still mind. We want a clear conscious. We want to be able to operate from as much integrity as possible. So even things from your childhood or teenage years or, from recent years, like clear as many of those ripples as possible. And you'll see, like, it'll start to clear up the results in your life, because whatever you're experiencing now is a result of what you've done in the past. So it just makes sense. It's a law of the universe, equal and opposite reactions. As ye sow, so shall ye reap. Right? But make sure that this is not coming from a codependent needing to be seen as good, but rather a genuine desire to do good. Okay? Like, if there's a lot of charge to some past conflict, you may not be able to successfully execute this. Right? And if there's little to medium charge for it, I would definitely go for it. All right? So this is pretty much what I have for you on this reversing your karmic load. Go down your list of contacts, make small things that you might not have been fully in integrity on, make them right. And that's the last exercise I got for you on facing your underworld. So just to recap, why do some people take advantage and make massive gains and others hardly take any steps towards what they say that they want? Well, people want to change their circumstances without changing themselves. And you, as you are, cannot get massive results. There's no chance. We have to decide to kill the old you. We need to shift your paradigm to become the one who has already earned 6, 7, 8 figures and helped thousands of people. Understand where you're at in the emotional cycle of change and decide if you want to go back to step 1 from the valley of despair, or if you want to push through and succeed. Because no matter what, you can either just decide to be stuck in that cycle of step 1, 2, and 3 and go to the valley of despair over and over again, or you can push through and understand that when you get to the valley of despair as part of this course or training, that's what hard feels like. Okay, so keep going. When I shared it, like, this will be challenging. Like, that's what challenging feels like. So we're right on track, and we have to keep going. All right, and just remember that's part of the plan. We want to face our demons and lead with our demons, just like Eminem did, and be able to kind of put them out and own them so that they can't be weaponized against us. We want to uncover the spy. Sun Tzu and the Art of War taught us the value of a spy. And we need to uncover those thoughts that allow us to think it's okay to not do the actions we say we want to do. Right? And write those down on a list so we can identify them when they come. And like Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you'll call it fate. We want to understand the mirror of reality by seeing that whatever we believe is what we're going to experience. Okay, through let me think about it, don't have the money, partner, permission, uncertainty, doubt, etc., etc. You want to become the client you want to have in life through this process and through anybody you hire. And you want to reverse your karmic load by understanding that whatever you're receiving now reflects what you've already done, thought, and spoken. And you want to clear as many of those fluctuations in the mind by making right any potential wrongs you've done and having a clean conscience. All right, that's what I got for you in this training. Hope it helped.